Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Spurs from the Stands. I'm Sarah, and if you're new around here and you joined us after the last video and the result last night, welcome aboard this crazy emotional roller coaster that is Tottenham Hotspur. Welcome to the family. Please do like, subscribe, comment, jump in because it's really helping to support the channel. And as I keep saying, we are still new around here. I don't know how long I can keep saying that for, but 2 weeks, what we've achieved in 2 weeks is absolutely phenomenal. And I've been thinking a little bit about why this channel has gained the momentum that it has. And in a world where there is so much toxicity and in a world where you have so much polarization and division, and you turn on the radio, you turn on your Twitter stream, or you put on YouTube, there's so much talk at the moment that's negative around Spurs, around the manager, and to a point you just get exhausted. So I don't know why you guys are joining, but my theory is that you guys watching this are critical thinkers. And when you are a problem solver, when you approach things through the lens of how can we fix this, how can we make this better, you become a critical thinker. And that is how you solve problems. And we all know that we have some very big problems. But the answer is not to run in circles through the negative spiral of decline that we've all seen many, many times before. And as I've broken down in that extensive rambly video that I did a few days ago about the long-term form of Spurs and our inability to win back-to-back games, not even just in the Premier League, but back-to-back games in general since 2023. So this has been a long going problem. And even before, without taking into consideration that 2023 season, the last time we had European football and we were playing in multiple competitions, we also struggled to get consistency. So this is not just a Spurs problem. This is like a long challenge that Spurs have had as a club for a very, very long time. And putting pressure on one guy to come in and fix that is not going to be, unfortunately, the solution. Now, yesterday, I know I came on here and I didn't lose my head, but obviously, when you watch a match, you're going game by game. So your reaction to a game is going to be very different once you've had time to sleep on things and reflect on things and perhaps even absorb some of that information that's circulating on the internet, on your TVs, on the radio right now. And so today I wanted to give you a bit of a leveled analysis on the game. I have actually got this afternoon's games on the TV. Someone's just scored. Someone's just scored. I can't tell you who it is at the moment. Who was it? Oh, Forest. Oh, great. Sorry if that was loud, but you can't make it up, can you? But that is actually one of the contexts that I want to bring to you today, because all of this obsession of us being 8 points from the relegation zone, and the fact that potentially we could finish this weekend, tomorrow evening, in 16th, doesn't actually change too much at the top of the table. And this is where things start to get crazy. Because if you actually, I know our heads have dropped, and when your heads drop metaphorically, you're obviously looking down at the table because you're like, oh, well, look at that. Spurs have got 28 points. West Ham have got 20 points. So you've basically got 2 wins and 2 draws, and they can make that back up the table, as in for West Ham. But if we're doing a Bissouma and we're keeping our chins up and we're looking up the table, the crazy thing is that Liverpool right now are in 4th place. They're in 4th place and they've already played this weekend. And what have they got? They've got 36 points. They've got 36 points. And so the crazy thing is that although we could be sitting 16th in the table, 8 points from drop off, and equally be 8 points from 4th. How mental is that? So when you contextualize things and you look at the bigger picture of things, it's a very, very tight table. And I know people keep saying it. But on the flip side, for us, we just need 2 wins and 2 draws to close that gap as well. And the fact that you have the majority of the table ahead of us that we haven't played again this season, we have a very solid chance of making it up the table. Now, the scary thing is that when we bank on us doing that, the expectation tends to get mirrored into the players, sorry. And the players can't seem to get it over the line, which is a continuous problem that we've had not just across the season, but across last season as well. And when I look at this, I think it's partly a tactical problem, it's partly a belief system or a philosophy, and it's also contextual to what's happening in the league. And I think what's happening, and look, I'm no expert. I saw some of your comments. Do you know what? I saw some of your comments actually on, I think it was the video about Sousa. And you guys were all writing some crazy stuff in the chat, like Sarah for interim manager. That's never going to happen. You need to get hired by the board. No, I will never get hired by Tottenham Hotspur. Maybe consult, but never get hired. So, yeah, I like being my own boss. But anyway, that aside, some of you were coming at me, and I appreciate all of your comments, by the way. Like, even if you're flagging mistakes that I'm making, as I said, this is still a new channel. So sometimes I can go off piece, or sometimes, this isn't scripted. This is completely natural. So obviously when you speak, sometimes you instinctively say things that are wrong, that aren't factually correct. So I appreciate you all for flagging me on that. At least you know that I'm not AI. And in a world of AI where all I do is I go on my Instagram and I see all these players with AI Tottenham shirts on, it's just a crazy, crazy world that we live in. So look, I'm a real person. I'm human too. Be kind. So yeah, let's give us all some grace, because I think particularly as Spurs fans, that's what we need to be giving to the team right now to actually make it through the rest of the season and maintain some sanity. So, right, I was saying before that little spiel that yes, the thing about this season, and we've seen this over the past few seasons, is the style of play across the Premier League has changed. And I've spoken about this before, because whether it was City, whether it was Arsenal, whether it was any of the other top clubs who have started playing this way, is that, we're seeing a lot more throw-ins, teams are stronger in the midfield. And I do think someone mentioned in the comments that VAR is playing a part in the play or the style of play. And I think the other thing that sometimes gets overlooked is the impact of data analysis and statistics in the actual game itself. Because what we know is this fascination of XG. And I think that one of the reasons why this season is playing out the way that it is because obviously to increase your chances of scoring, you need to make it reduce the chances of missing the goal, right? So if you're a manager who's trying to get the highest probability of scoring a goal in order to win the game, then you have this tendency to play the ball into the box and make shots from inside the box. And I think across the board this season, the reason why you've seen less, perhaps, not necessarily goals from open play, but goals which come from a moment of flair, a moment of inspiration from a player, a moment where a player just sees an opportunity and they take the shot. Now, I think that's partly for some teams that might be down to tactics. For some teams that might be down to, in-game management or the moments that happen inside a game. But you can certainly see across the board, in the main, this is a trend that's happening. Now, we know Frank is a guy who likes analytics. He likes data. And so because of that, I think that our gameplay has often at times been to try and get the ball in the box before we take the shot. Now, this game happened to be different for Spurs, and we're going to talk about the Burnley versus Spurs game. But I just want to bring this up because I think we lose our heads in the moment. We think it's all crazy. But look, 8 points from the drop and 8 points from fourth in potentially what could be 16th place. You could not write it. You could not write it. And all of those well, not all of them, but the majority of those teams ahead of us, we have to still play. So there's so much still to play for, and we should not be dropping our heads in this moment. We should not be sacking this season off just yet. And I know I got annoyed yesterday, but that's just the way that the league's going to go. And I've just seen Villa are 1 up from Newcastle. So there you go. Look, stuff's going to change, but the game's obviously running now in the background. So yeah, so look, even if Newcastle drop points today, they're only 5 points ahead. So there is some crazy stuff that could still happen. And sometimes we think we've got this really hard run coming up, but then it would be very Tottenham to show up in those big games, those big game moments. You know, players like Romero and Van der Ven, they seem to have their big game moments. So look, don't write us off just yet. Let's all take a breather, keep calm, as Frank says. But yes, I do want to go into the game a little bit more yesterday and talk a little bit more about that, because we actually had a lot more shots. We actually had a lot more shots on target than we have had all season. And our XG yesterday was actually 2.05. So for all the complaints that we have had all season, it looks like we seem to, we're a team of two halves. We can't play attacking and defense at the same time. And one of the main, look, nothing is the problem. There's a series of problems that we have. So nothing happens in isolation. But one of the problems that we have is that our defenders are our top goal scorers, other than Richie, and he's out injured. So Mickey van der Ven and Romero both have 4 goals this season. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know for a fact, someone needs to look into this, but often in big game moments that cause us to get an equalizer or win the game, sometimes it is Mickey or Romero who are the guys who managed to get it across the line. And in those moments, they're also not the guys defending. So it's a very strange situation, because Spurs is almost upside down right now. We're almost upside down, if you see what I mean. We can't seem to nail it on both fronts, and that's a major problem. What's also a major problem is that Frank says it's a good performance, which it was, but I think you also need to acknowledge the fact that it could be better. That in a game where you play good football and still draw, where's your next level going to be? You know, if it's good and you draw, then are you saying your ceiling is drawing? And that's a mindset, belief, and system and framework that I don't buy into. And I think maybe for a lot of fans, that's why they're not buying into Frank, because the football yesterday proved to us, and the football against Dortmund during the week proved to us, that we can be that attacking team. Look, we had 11 shots yesterday. We hit the woodwork. Their goalkeeper was the man of the match. He made 3 massive saves. So there is a lot of things to be positive about. And the other thing is that we made a lot of shots outside of the box yesterday. Yeah, we had 11 shots inside the box and 7 shots outside the box. So for all of us calling and saying, oh, you're trying to dribble it into the back of the net, we actually did have a lot of shots. And I think this is reflective on the flip side of what's been going on, not just with Spurs, but other teams as well. Look at Liverpool. They drew against Burnley. Look at United. They drew against Burnley. You know, Everton drew against Burnley. Bournemouth drew against Burnley. So there is context to these things. I'm not saying that Burnley's like an amazing team or anything, but if the last few games were anything to go by, their form is perhaps picking up. And then you see teams like Sunderland who are dropping points. So this point of the season is very, very pivotal. And we know that we've got that one game against Frankfurt. And if we win that, then that is going to be a huge weight off our shoulders from going through the knockout phases in between our already jam-packed schedule. So back to the game. I've done it again. Back to the game. In terms of sort of our players, just to run through those, we'll start from the back. So Vicario didn't have the best game. probably liable for one, if not two, moments in the game which set us behind. And if this was a one-off, you'd be like, he had an off day. But this happened against West Ham. That last goal, the second goal that cost us the game against West Ham, was due to Vicario messing up, and the second goal yesterday, it goes straight underneath him, and was it Udogie who flies in, and it just somehow bundles into the back of the net. So I do think Vicario is partly culpable for this. I do like his character. I like his influence in the dressing room, but is it enough? And I think maybe that's not an upgrade for now, but I think it needs to be looked at in the summer. I don't think he stays if he doesn't get first team football. And he's a great character to have around. But this is costing us. And when we take the emotion out of it, no matter how much we like the guy, Frank's not in goal. He's not in goal. He's not doing stupid, silly passes out. Vicario hasn't been told to do that. That is a lapse, a momentary lapse, which costs you the game. And that's what football is. It's moments. So he could have done a lot better. And Vicario, I want more from you. I want to see more from you. Danso didn't have the best game, but he started midweek. I don't know how many times he started back-to-back games. So maybe, again, that's a reflection of a lapse in concentration. Perhaps for him as well, it was a slightly change in formation. He's got Romero to his left, and then he's got Van de Ven on his left as well. So you've got 5 defenders on the pitch, and, you can see 2 goals. So the fact that we score 2 is overshadowed by the fact that we let 2 in. And you have to look at the back line for that. You have to look at, why aren't you man marking? Why aren't you watching defenders in the box when crosses come in? Why are you making sloppy mistakes which go out and immediately come back to us? And these are not one-time mistakes or issues. These are recurring issues that we cannot seem to knock out of our game. So look, Danso had a fair game. I think he went off about 80 minutes. He did a lot of accurate passes. He was quite involved in the game, but he couldn't really get his long balls on target. That didn't cost us the game, but often it means that then obviously you're losing possession. So it's not ideal. He did win a lot of his aerial duels. And he also won a lot of his ground duels. He won 3 out of his 4 ground duels. So in the main, he did okay. But look, he's a great player for our squad rotation. Whether he's a guy that can start again against Frankfurt, I don't know. But obviously, you haven't got Dragusin named in the squad. So I presume he's going to play Romero and Van de Ven. But let's hold our thoughts on that until probably next week. Romero obviously had a fantastic game, scored a goal. Same as Van de Ven. What's funny is Romero had less accurate passes than Danso. So sometimes we think that his, I guess his influence on the pitch is better than it actually is because he redeems himself from scoring goals. That makes sense. So he won all 7 of his ground duels. He did very well, but you also have to be in the right place at the right time. And being a leader on the pitch also means directing your teammates around you to not get yourself in positions. And I don't know, wasn't he the one who mishandled the ball as well, that went out, that led to their first goal. So player of 2 halves maybe, but redeems himself from scoring that goal. Van de Ven also redeemed himself from scoring a goal. He actually wasn't as involved in this game as either Danso or Romero. His presence on the pitch was, and he was flying up that left flank and causing lots of problems and pushing the ball up with Spence in front of him. However, he actually didn't have as many accurate passes. He actually had almost half the amount of passes as Danso and almost half the amount of passes as Romero. So he wasn't as involved in the game. Maybe that was due to tactics or setups. But he didn't make as many interceptions in this game. Now, maybe that was because we were stronger on the left, maybe because we were pushing forward more. I'm not sure. But decent game from him. Porro was okay. Nothing really to rave about. I think our midfielders who really showed up were Bissouma and Gallagher. So Bissouma, considering the guys like barely played for us, I thought he had a very, very decent game. He had 93% accurate passes. He had 2 successful dribbles. He won 7 out of 7 of his ground duels and both of his aerial duels. So statistically, Basuma was actually our best player on the pitch. Crazy, I know, but he was our best player on the pitch. So I don't know whatever he's smoking at the moment, but maybe he needs to share it around with the rest of the team because it seems to be working. So well done, Basuma, because I think he had a really solid game. And look, he's not going to be playing midweek for us because he's not in that Champions League squad, which is another issue which we can save for another time. We also had Gallagher in our midfield, who had a pretty solid game. He wasn't as clinical as Basuma, but he was very involved. He had that shot as well that was saved. Cracking shot, so unlucky not to score, but that's sometimes how the cards fall. But he was putting crosses in as well. He had a successful dribble. He did a series of long balls as well. So he did 4 out of 6 accurate long balls. So there was a lot of positives about our midfield, and we all thought that the midfield was going to be like the missing link in this game, and that wasn't the case. So when you actually look at the statistics and the numbers, sometimes the issues that we think we're having change game by game. Jed Spence, I'm not convinced left wing is going to be for him. He's obviously a very defensive-minded player. He's very good at dribbling the ball, but when it comes to his crosses and when it comes to his long balls, that's where his game is weakest, because he won the least amount of his ground duels, I think, in this game comparative to the team. It's interesting because I'm looking at FOTMob and he had one of the best ratings of the game. And I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just not sure if that position on the left wing is really for him. Okay, Chelsea have just scored. But yeah, I'm not sure if that left wing position is his ideal position. Obviously, Tell is so out of favour. I am wondering whether Tell is on his way out, because if I was Tell, I would not be happy about this situation. And in addition, if you're thinking of buying players and you want to sell to them Champions League football, you've only got 2 more substitutions you can make in that Champions League squad if we assume that Gallagher's going to go in. So if you buy, I don't know, a left back, let's just say there's a name floating around. Let's just say you buy a left back and you promise them Champions League football. They have to go into the squad. And let's say then, well, you've got a situation where you need a forward or a midfielder to go into the squad as well. Well, then Tell's going to miss out. So there's a lot of hard conversations that are going to be had in the background to try and plug that left wing space that we have, because he's obviously, as much as he bigs up Tell and he's not going to throw him under the bus in the pressers, the evidence he's showing us is that he's not starting him. So maybe he starts against City. I don't know, but I don't think that's the best game to start him. But there it is. Simmons, I thought, had a very, very good game. He was also very involved. Unfortunately, he had a few shots. How many shots did he have? So he hit the woodwork. I can't see how many shots he had. Big shots. Yeah, so he had 2 shots. Yeah, 2 shots. I think he hit the woodwork on one of them, didn't he? So he had a fairly decent game. The thing I find with Xavi is he is very good. He is very good on the ball, and he's very good at like creating moments in a game. And you can see he has these moments of flair. And I don't know whether the guy still thinks he's like playing for Barcelona or something, but the teammates around him just aren't on his wavelength. They're just not on his wavelength. And whether that's because he's playing maybe a different style, or, I mean, it can't be a different style because they're playing under the same tactics, but he seems to have this creative edge, which is not elite to the players around him, but there's just a lack of synergy. There's a lack of I don't know if it's communication. I don't know what to be honest with you, I don't know what it is. I don't know why it's happening, but it keeps happening. It keeps happening that he's very involved in the play. You think an opportunity is going to come of it, and then either he gets himself in a position or it gets crossed and we lose the ball. And I like him, but if you have Maddison fit, Maddison starts in front of him. So I think that's one of the main problems that we've got. We're using probably someone who is young, he's 22. He's got some experience, but he's not a prime player. He's not a player in his prime, So typically you probably would play a James Maddison in front of him, and you're not going to buy a 10 when you've got Maddison on the bench. So it's a very, very tricky situation, which is why it would be beneficial if you're going to bring in a player. You bring in a player who can play in multiple positions. That would be the ideal scenario, because then also you solve that problem of Tell. Anyway, back to the game. I think Xavi was okay. Not the best player on the pitch, but certainly not the worst. And considering he also played midweek and showed us all his swollen ankle, fair play to him. Odegaard had a great game. I'm still shocked. I'm still shocked at the fact that Basuma's stats were 100% on all of those areas. How mad is that? Knowing us will sell him. But anyway, so Odegaard. Obviously, he got his assist with the second goal. Congratulations to him, which helped us to take a point from this game. He did play the full 90. And he had 90% accurate passes. Again, wasn't so involved in the game, but you can clearly see he's better on the right than he is the left. And so it makes sense why he's not starting on the left, even though we have no right winger. I would go as even far to say across these last two games, seeing him start on the right, I'd put him there over Kudus. Big shout. What do you guys think? If Kudus was back in the team, would you put Odegaard in there? Because Odegaard has delivered more for us in assists than Kudus has this season. Maybe not necessarily in the Prem, but I believe across all competitions, I think he scored more for us than Kudus. I'm saying things without fully knowing the numbers, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Anyway, it's all irrelevant anyway, because our top goal scorer is Romero. Anyway, right. So Odegaard had a great game. Got us that second goal. He's a very quick player. I thought he carried on this game how he left off on the last game. Maybe he could win more of his ground duels. I think maybe that would make him a better player. Obviously, we hope that for all players, but I think he can be a little bit stronger in some moments in the game. And that leads us on to Solanke. So Solanke was probably one of our, I don't want to say worst players on the pitch, because he did do some great things like coming back, picking up the ball. He was connecting better with Odegaard and Xavi than I ever saw Mawani or Richarlison do this season. He brings something different to the team, to Richie. Unfortunately, he wasn't sharp enough for this game, and he started last game for the first time in 7 months. So it's unsurprising that in this game, he wasn't at the races. He had that shot where the keeper saves it and it was straight at the keeper. That was a very unfortunate circumstance, because if he puts that ball anywhere else in the goal, it probably goes in. But their keeper was having a fantastic game. It was very close proximity, and there probably wasn't too much he could do about it. However, yes, of course, it will be great to see him having more opportunities. But in general, I think he helped out the team quite a lot. His dribbling wasn't particularly great. He committed a couple of fouls. I do think Solanke has got more potential than Richie. I think it's just going to take time for him to get fully match fit and to see the best from him. And considering he's probably going to start next game as well, this is where the question then becomes, is it better to start Mawani, even if you know that Solanke's the better player? So these are very tricky situations, and you can see the dilemma that Frank is in. you can see the dilemma that Frank is in. So in the main, it was a draw that felt like a loss. I'm hoping we can do something against City, but that's the Tottenham mindset, isn't it? That is the Tottenham mindset. You part of you hopes that you do, and part of you hopes that you don't for various other reasons. When you look at the league table, and that's the thing, if you're not united, if you are divided, if your mask slips, then these are the moments that are going to cost you, because you have to be united in these moments. You have to be forward thinking together. And when the fans are divided, over whether the players are good enough, whether the manager's good enough, then you're never going to be able to get over the line, unfortunately. And that's why we're kind of seeing these flip-flopping results, because we can't get momentum at the moment. We just can't seem to win back-to-back games and get that consistency. And that might be due to fatigue, to focus, which leads to mistakes and errors. And we've seen those littered across the pitch. I mean, this is the fourth vlog that I've done in 2 weeks since starting this channel, which is mad, which is crazy. I've been doing this now every day. Yes, I've been showing up every day to share with you insights. And the fact that we've had 4 games since I started doing this in 2 weeks, and there's been so much to talk about, is exactly the reflection of the fact that, these players, they probably are feeling that now, and on, I don't know whether they fly Wednesday morning or Tuesday night, but they're going to be off again. So, maybe it's a tactics, maybe today's a rest day and tactics and training on Monday, and maybe they're out on Tuesday. I don't know their schedule, but these games come thick and fast. And to be at the best of your game, you have to be sharp. You have to, connect with your teammates and have an awareness about you. And sometimes we drop off in games, which... Sorry, I just saw Chelsea almost scored again. But yeah, sometimes you drop off in games, and you have these moments and lapses. And for Spurs, we need to kick these out of our games, because it's costing us. It's costing us dearly. So based on what's happening right now, obviously with the Chelsea game, if this was to end, I'm going to end this video shortly, but if the game day was to end as it is right now and Chelsea and Villa both pick up points, that still leaves Spurs 9 points behind fourth, which is Chelsea. So 9 points behind Chelsea and 8 points ahead of relegation in potentially what could be 16th place is wild. I maybe there have been other seasons where this has happened, but you write your narrative. You write your narrative at the end of the day. You write your life script. So what do we want the script of Spurs to be? What do we want it to be? Do we want this to be another failure? Do we want this to be another failed project? Or is this a time that we kick on, that we build, that we bring in players? You have to make a decision either way. You have to own it and you have to back it. And right now, the board seem to be owning their decision in the fact of keeping Frank, but not backing it up by buying the players that we need to reinforce the team, to get the squad rotation, which is going to increase sharpness, which is going to increase the mental strength of these players. Now, you can still blame the tactics of Frank, but from what I've seen from the last 2 games, I do think we've been playing better. I think we've been against Dortmund and against Burnley. I think we played better, and I think we were incredibly unlucky not to walk away with the 3 points. And that's why this feels like a loss. But anyway, thanks a lot, guys, for watching. Please do write in the comments, what are your thoughts on the game? How are you feeling today? Now you've slept on it, you've decompressed, you saw my reaction last night. So what's the vibe in the room? How are we all feeling? And maybe we've got a different sort of echo chamber here, because a lot of you guys yesterday were saying, I'm okay with giving Frank more time and we shouldn't be sacking the manager. And so I'm incredibly grateful for you guys for speaking out, for, sharing your thoughts and your comments, because all opinions are valid at this point, and it's out of our control what the decision is at the end of the day. Sometimes you just have to detach from it and allow it to rest and let someone else make that decision. So, well, we have to let someone else make that decision. So yeah, I'm glad that you guys have been sharing the counter narrative, which is not so loud, or not so loud on media platforms. Look, this channel is a small fish in a big pond, okay? We've been going for 2 weeks and we're approaching 2,000 subscribers, which in and of itself is unbelievable to me. unbelievable to me. But we're a tiny fish in a big pond, and the voices out there are so loud. They are so loud. Sometimes you get sucked in and it's hard to see the wood from the trees. When you're confused, when you don't have certainty or direction about where you're going, you feel lost amongst it. And so it's good to see that some of you out there are staying strong on your belief that Frank should be the manager, that we should stick with this, and that we need to build on what we've already got and then assess where we are in the summer. And I think that's fair. I think that's a fair argument. And right now, I wouldn't mind whatever way this goes. I think if he goes, that doesn't solve anything. If we bring in a caretaker manager, that doesn't solve anything. What we need to see is problems on the pitch being solved. And that is partly tactical from the manager, but he needs the resources to help him to do that. So that's where I feel the sticking point is for this video. Tomorrow's another day. We've got some exciting stuff coming up. So stay tuned, stick around for that, and I'll see you all in the next video.